morning, everyone. So we are gathered here at this awesome conference on innovation, not just to talk about change, but to envision it. So I have only 5 minutes up here to illustrate a concept and a different way of thinking about one of the most transformative opportunities inside many organizations, and that is your approach to workforce management. So here's where workforce strategy is for many organizations today. 90% of time, money, and focus is all around recruitment. How many people can I hire? How many applicants can I get? You often hear, it's a numbers game. You see KPIs inside an organization around how many people can I hire versus true net workforce growth. And although retention is certainly a conversation inside every agency across the nation today, often what we see is the focus and the attention that it gets pales in comparison to what's being spent in terms of time and focus on recruitment. So here's the problem. High turnover across all roles in home care. There's a continued shortage of workers. We've all talked a lot about this at this conference. And truly addressing this workforce crisis, it's more than an app. It's more than a tactic. It really takes all of us as leaders in this room to truly think differently and drive the change that's needed to address our workforce issues. So I'm going to illustrate a challenge that we see each and every day. So for those of you that don't know Mission Care Collective, we have a suite of products in the workforce space that span recruitment, engagement, retention, workforce analytics. I don't bring this up to talk about me or be boastful, but I bring this up to illustrate a concept. So our team's calling in to hundreds of home care providers, like all of you in the room, each and every month. If my team calls into a provider and says, can I talk to someone that's in charge of talent acquisition and recruitment? We get an easy answer. Hey, talk to Mary. On the flip side, if we call into a provider and say, who owns workforce strategy? Who can I talk to around retention? A lot of times we hear a little hesitation. Sometimes we hear we're hiring for that role. We all do. Sometimes we even hear we have an app for that. The reality is it's not always clear. We get a very different answer when we talk about retention and workforce management. In building on these challenges, we all know that home care workers, they do this job for reasons beyond a paycheck. And especially if you look at direct care workers and your CNAs and in your home health aides, they can make more money working pretty much anywhere else in the country. And the reality is your direct care workers are 3 times more likely to struggle with anxiety and depression than the average US population. So why do home care workers do this work? So many of them do this work for calling. They do it to serve. And ultimately, they do this work for connection. But if it's truly connection that home care workers crave, who are they actually connected to at work? Who's typically your boss at a home care agency?
Typically the recruiter, I would say.
Okay, so I sat down as part of a large study with the National Association of Home Care and Hospice and Bill Dombey's team last year. Talked to lots of home care workers. I said, who are you connected to? Who's your boss? They love their clients. They love their patients. They're connected to them. They're connected to the schedule and the recruiter. They're not connected to their teammates. They're not connected to anyone else inside the organization. They have a transactional relationship, if you will, with their home care employer. You work X hours, you get paid X hours. It doesn't necessarily foster this environment of connectedness. And connection is actually at the heart of our workforce. So here's the opportunity to think differently and reimagine what your workforce strategy could look like. What if your workforce strategy actually started with what drives the workforce? It started with connection. What if your team wasn't only connected to the scheduler and the recruiter, but they were connected to each other? What if they knew what was happening at the home office? What if they knew each other? And here's the thing, this is not an app. This is not a one-off strategy. This is really about a mind shift change, in a holistic approach, if you will, about a commitment of bringing people together and building genuine connections inside an organization. It's about giving people a place to talk and convene. And in this model of workforce management, in this bottom tier here, here's the cool thing. As you bring people together, your retention starts to increase and your ENPS starts to go up. So all of a sudden, you have a healthier team. You're getting more from them, and they're getting more from you. And then as your workforce strategy starts to evolve, now you layer on data and tools to essentially give you more insight on top of a healthier team. You start to actually know who's a flight risk, who's willing to pick up more hours. And you know what? Your team's more willing to help each other out. Why? Because they're connected and they know one another and they're more willing to be a teammate and help one another out. So all of a sudden, you also have a team that's more efficient. They're more likely to complete their paperwork. They're more likely to do the things that you want them to do because they're connected and they're part of a bigger vision. So now that you have a healthier team, you have a more efficient team, recruitment still has a place in the workforce triangle, but it's a much smaller piece of the pie. Now you have the opportunity to be in the driver's seat, and now you recruit to truly grow. You recruit to truly expand your territory and open new markets. So essentially, you get to select and hire fewer of the right people, and what's really neat, you actually have more data on the thumbprint of someone that's operationally more efficient and profitable inside your organization. And here's what I love. This model of rethinking your approach to workforce strategy, this is within easy reach, and it can completely transform how you set goals and KPIs for your team. And what's neat is everyone in here gets to set the goals. Most organizations have a hiring goal. I need to hire this many people this month. I need to hire this many people this year. This can transform how you orient your team, and you can start thinking about giving them goals and what's really growing your business. And that's net workforce growth. And by reimagining your approach, you also build a healthier team, a more connected team. And the reality is you probably spend just as much time and money on the workforce today model versus the workforce kind of future model and this opportunity here. But you build a team that's actually happier, more connected, more committed, and ultimately more operationally efficient and profitable. So by rethinking your approach here to workforce management, I think one of the biggest opportunities is so many internal teams right now are completely burnt out when it comes to workforce. It's really, really challenging. And a lot of teams feel like, oh my gosh, this is impossible. By rethinking this and implementing a new way of thinking about it in your own organizations, it can help your team see and feel what feels impossible to become possible. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to present a different perspective and a new way of thinking about workforce. For those that want to talk about workforce, you're sticking around for the conference. I'm leading a mastermind group at 11 o'clock today. The description is right in the book. It's wrong in the app. We're going to be talking about workforce engagement, recruitment, retention across all roles, and hearing from other providers and what you're doing in the room. So if you're here, you want to talk about workforce, I invite you to join.